Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fandom Post Radio podcast. I am your engineer, Kate, and joining me this week is Brandon.
What up?
Kestrel.
Hello.
And Kane.
Hello, hello.
DJ could not be here because he could not be here. I can't remember his excuse.
He's busy.
Yeah, the man's busy.
Man's always busy. It's the busiest man in the history of being busy. Maybe he's just getting another tattoo. I don't know. We are just going to be doing the usual what we've been watching and news podcast this week. Please send in your ideas for topics to our podcast. You can reach us at our website, fandompost.com. Or send us your feedback. We never get feedback anymore. We used to get feedback. Some more feedback again.
Why get feedback when you're perfect?
I guess.
I mean, usually the only feedback I get is from Kestrel's friends telling me that the audio's fucked up. So that's good feedback, though, because I like to know that. Like when last time it only uploaded like the first 10 minutes of the show for some reason, it didn't tell me that it failed. And this is why I rely on Kestrel's friends to tell me if the shit's working. So,
thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kestrel's friends. My friends don't tell me when shit's broken. They also don't tell me when they're listening. I find out like weeks later. They're like, "Hey, I still listen to your podcast." I'm like, "You do?" So, news. What do we have for news? It's been a minute.
Yeah. So last episode we didn't do news because we did a big ranking episode. So we haven't done news since sometime in April when we first talked about this season. Despite that, I have very few news stories, which probably means that I just forgot to put a bunch of stuff on here. But let's run through a few not so new news items. This one is back over a month ago. But G-Kids licensed the first Slam Dunk, which is the relatively new film, came out last year, I believe, at the end of the year, in Japan. New Slam Dunk, partially CG, mostly CG animated film, actually written and directed by Inoue, the author of the manga. And yeah, that is coming to theaters soon-ish. It's coming to AX for its North American premiere, which is in a few weeks here. And then, yeah, it's going to be in theaters in US and Canada. Along with the Japanese version, it will have a new English dub. So yeah, that's cool to see that happen.
That's one I still need to get around to actually like watch out of all the sports shows. It's one that I haven't, and I keep meaning to read or watch, even like any portion of it. And I don't have any good reason. It's just I see it and I'm like, I should watch that. And then there's like always something else, even though I know that this one is good. Same with like Captain Tsubasa. Even though I'm not a huge fan of European football / soccer, it's still like a landmark. So it's one of those ones I at least want to, I don't know, if there's a movie, trilogy or something to that effect that sort of gives you a summarized version, because I have no idea how big that show is. I know Slam Dunk isn't heinously long, I don't believe.
I think I'm trying to remember how many volumes the manga is. It's definitely, quite a few dozen.
Around like 40.
Yeah, 40-ish. Yeah.
That's not terrible.
The anime, I think, didn't cover it all. I can't remember, but I think it's still like over 100 episodes. I think the Slam Dunk manga, right after one of Inoue's other basketball manga, Real, I think for kind of just straightforward sports manga or anime or any media, because I don't care about sports other than those mediums. I think Slam Dunk probably my favorite piece of sports media. The manga specifically.
That's one of those that I always like see volumes of it at Kinokuniya, and I'm like, oh, is now the time? Is now the time to get into Slam Dunk? But I never do it. I feel like the big push for me will be hopefully one day they give it like an oversized edition, just like with some nicer pages. I think Inoue's art deserves that much.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But yeah, till then, backlog hell. It goes.
Yeah, I think, like he's got 3 manga series in my top 10 of all time. And Vagabond got the big treatment. Real got the at least high quality treatment. So yeah, it would be really good if Slam Dunk, it's a Shonen Jump property, so they don't tend to get those as often. But yeah, it would be really great if you got some 3-in-1s with some high quality paper and larger trim, because it definitely deserves it. I know it's had like, sometimes on the right stuff, Christmas sales. This is how I got most of it originally. They have like the huge bundles of series. So like I had a few volumes of Slam Dunk, and then maybe like Christmas 2015, they had the rest of them in bundles, and I was like, all right, it's time. And so I remember opening this massive box of just like 35 volumes of Slam Dunk. It was a beautiful sight to behold.
Hell yeah. I know,
but yeah.
I know that Real was like out of stock for like a long time. They weren't like reprinting, but then the last like year or two, they've been like in stock on right stuff pretty often. So I've been thinking about getting into that as well, because a lot of people say some people say they like it even more than Slam Dunk.
Yeah, I think it is better than Slam Dunk. I think it's the only sports media that I like even more than Slam Dunk, but it is a lot more than just sports.
Yeah. Yeah, he's goated. Oh, I hope the movie has been going well for him.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. It seems to be doing well. So yeah, I definitely hope it does well out here and is good.
Well, CG, so who knows?
I know it's hard. I think I'm guessing it's like similar to the Dragon Ball superhero movie because it's Toei and it came out at the same time. So I guessing it's a similar-ish style, but I'm not entirely sure. I saw the trailer, but yeah, I think it didn't look bad. So I'm willing to give it a shot. And it's very interesting that he is directing the film because, he's never worked in animation or filmmaking in any capacity before. He's just written and drawn manga. So.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
Yep. Okay. Next couple pieces of news. Speaking of manga, so apparently I covered some of this in that I was talking about it after we thought we were done recording the last episode, and then we were still leaving the Craig recording going, and Kate put some of that content in the last episode. So maybe you've heard me talk about this in some capacity. But yeah, so there was this announcement that we didn't really talk about at the time that Kodansha would be coming out with a new manga app called K-Manga. They set the launch date for it. I forget how early they announced it, like a month, 2 or 3 months maybe, before it was supposed to come out. And, they were hyping it up, counting down to it and everything. And that seemed like an exciting prospect. Kodansha's got a lot of good content. And then the day before they launched it, their scheduled launch date, Viz just out of nowhere is like, oh, we've got a new app. It's available now. It's $1.99 a month, just like our Shonen Jump service. It's basically all of our content except our Shonen Jump series. Follows the same pattern as that in that if you are caught up with a series, everything is just free. All the new simulpub chapters that come out are free for 3 weeks. So you only need to pay us if you want to like catch up on the backlog of a series. I think also like the first 3 chapters of everything are free. So if you want to just try a bunch of stuff out before you commit, or you want to buy physical volumes or something, you can do that all for free. $1.99 It's literally the best deal in all of entertainment.
Yep.
And then the next day, Kodansha launched K-Manga as scheduled, and it's just this absurd, like fucking gotcha points and ticket system that's impossible to understand. You need like 100-page manual to try to figure out how it works, and they like different things have different prices or number of points, and you got to do like all this like ad shit or Candy Crush shit or whatever to get your points to try to read your manga, or you pay them money, of course. But it's all in like installments and little bits and pieces, and chapters for like longer ones are split up, so you can't even like read them as full chapters, or if you don't have enough points, you only get half of this chapter of this series. So
I hate everything you just said for the past like 10 minutes.
So bad, so bad. Yeah.
Like people were crunching numbers and they're like, this is cheaper to buy on Amazon digitally. And it's just like, congratulations, your product is a colossal failure from the drop.
Yeah.
Like complete misunderstanding or just not caring about how the US market for this stuff works.
Yep.
Hustling backwards.
Even before Viz like shadow launched that new app, how do you look at your other main competitor, their Shonen Jump app, look at its pricing model and say, you know what, we're gonna do something a little different, and then just literally the most brain dead shit I've ever seen. Oh, I didn't even know that thing about the like splitting up the chapters or whatever.
Oh yeah, that was good once that came to light.
Also, there's like really bad censorship.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
A full black panel.
Yeah.
Really?
Just like big black blocks on top of stuff. It's incredible.
Which somehow made stuff even more frightening. I'm like, how do you even make that worse? It's like that looks more suggestive.
Yeah.
Turn it into horror. Real quick.
That's basically what they did.
So bad.
Yeah, that is just awful. I wonder if anyone has done like any numbers on like how that has went for them, because I assume it has gone terribly.
I sure hope so.
I'm sure they have numbers.
Yeah.
They're probably
they ain't gonna be sharing them.
Nope. No way.
Ugh. Just so
I don't know. I don't know if it's because there's like an existing business partnership, and I hope there isn't. But I opened up the Viz Manga app. I was like, yeah, maybe I should check this out and see what's out there. And I scroll down a little bit, and there's an ad to get the Shonen Jump app, but there's not an ad for the Kodansha app at all. And I'm hoping it's just an insanely petty move where they're like, Kodansha's trash, don't get that. Get the Shonen Jump app.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think like you said, Kess, like the Shonen Jump app was already like one of the best deals in terms of like media. Just because I mean, I love me some physical manga, but if you're trying to do big catch up, literally $2-3 a month, I caught up on all of One Piece over a summer instead of spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on single volumes or box sets. And like you said, if you are caught up, I've been reading the weekly Sunday chapters like for the last 3-4 years just because of this app, and it's literally dirt cheap. It's so nice. I think the only thing I could ask for is some kind of integration between their two apps would be nice, but I don't know if there's like a reason they keep them separated.
Oh, I guess another thing I should mention about it, it's not just like Shonen Jump and everything else. It's mainly the Shonen Jump app is everything from Shueisha, and Viz Manga is everything from Shogakukan.
Oh, okay. Still, both of them are goated, and both you can pay for both of them and still be getting 10 times a better deal than Kodansha.
Yes.
So,
and you don't have to like do advanced calculus to try to figure out how to read half a chapter.
No.
Yep. So, sorry, Kodansha, you done fucked up.
Yeah.
They like to fuck up an awful lot. They've made some really dumbass decisions. Like, remember when they had all their stuff releasing through a bunch of different other companies and they just pulled all the licenses at once?
Mm.
Yeah. They're like, we're gonna to be taking that away from Del Rey and Tokyopop and anybody else who has our licenses, and we're going to release it all ourselves.
They're like the Konami of manga publisher.
Oh, they really are.
Aniplex kind of did that with anime in the early 2010s too, when they entered the market. I guess throughout the 2010s as licenses started expiring. But that's why, like, you can't get all of these old Funimation releases, like, the original Full Metal Alchemist, or Darker Than Black, or Baccano, stuff like that. Because Aniplex is just like, oh, we have an American branch now, so nobody else gets to ever relicense or republish any of our stuff. Of course, now Aniplex and Funimation and Crunchyroll are all the same thing, so they kind of work together now. But those things still aren't available because they haven't been reissued.
Ugh. Free Baccano.
Damn, that hurts.
Yeah.
Is there even a Blu-ray version of Baccano?
They did release one, but it didn't have any of like the extra shit that the original DVD release had.
Yeah, and I think it went out of print fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Ugh. All right. Last piece of news that I have on here is a bit more recent. I guess it's still a few weeks old at this point. But I think this is one of several licenses that Anime Limited announced in a row. So just kind of cherry picked it. But Anime Limited is a UK company. They've mainly been working in the UK and Ireland, but they have, over the past few years, started to release a few things in the US and Canada. So one of the new licenses they picked up is Great Pretender. And, it's significant because a lot of Netflix stuff does not get licensed. And when it does, it often does not have the Netflix dub. Like Sentai has licensed a bunch of stuff that Netflix has originally dubbed, and they've had to redub it themselves in Houston because they couldn't get the original recording. And they are generally of lower quality. So this one confirmed up front, it's going to be released worldwide with the Netflix dub that everyone loved, really good NYAV post dub. And another thing that is always an issue is music rights, where, the record label in Japan is totally cool with giving it up for whatever with Studio and Netflix and their partners will pay for it. But the record label in America for artists like Freddie Mercury might not be as amenable to someone like Anime Limited. But in this case, they confirmed that they will have the Freddie Mercury theme in every episode on the Blu-ray. So, yay, all good things.
Rare W.
Yeah, the music rights are always the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's not talk about Fly Me to the Moon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, I have some semi-news I saw recently. Mm-hmm. At the dismay of my and Kestrel's wallet, I saw that Studio Ghibli will be repressing all of their soundtrack vinyls with new colored editions.
They do this like every fucking year.
But if they announce like some kind of box set for them, I am going to be a very poor individual.
Yeah. If they do a nice box set, I might have to spring for it. But those Ghibli movie vinyls literally get re-released in some new format like every year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but colored.
Yeah.
I'd rather spring for the Joe Hisaishi like compilation album that just came out, where they got his like a live like remaster of sorts. I think it's like a yellow label. Yeah, Symphonic Celebration. It's like a collection of all of basically the music from Ghibli and stuff with a Philharmonic. Emily was telling me about it. Apparently it's like a big deal if this happens, because the company or the producer that makes these generally is like you have to have a lot of like notoriety and clout and have some type of impact to get a record made like this. Yeah, Deutsche Grammophon, I think it's called, or something like that. So I was thinking of getting more of that than any of the individual albums, I think.
Well, if any of you want to visit LA in August, your boy Joe Hisaishi is performing with an orchestra here.
Cool.
That's pretty dope.
Gonna be sweet.
Oh, and other news, Kestrel and I met in the flesh for the first time.
True.
Holy crap, amazing.
Yeah. For a good, 2 hours, maybe.
I was in Brand's hometown for 4 days, and took him until the last hour of the convention to finally show up.
It might have been a convention first, just being at the closing ceremonies and nothing else.
Yes, Brandon came into the movie during the ending credits.
Yeah, literally had to be snuck in.
Right, we snuck him into closing ceremonies because he was not going to buy a badge just for closing ceremonies.
That's fine.
Yep.
Hey,
so I have met all of you again.
Nice.
Yay!
I was in Brand's home for 4 days.
I was a busy man. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Hey,
anyway,
life.
That's what we got for news.
I tried to meet up with. I was like, I want to go find Darius at Anime Boston. I never found Darius.
Yeah, he's a hard guy to find. I think
he's always busy at those things.
Very, very busy. I think he was at the Otakon that me and Kane and DJ were hanging out at, but I don't think we ever got a hold of him.
I think I saw him once at an Otakon running the museum.
Yeah, he always runs that. So he's like an NPC at Otakon. If you want to find Darius, you got to go to the location. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You got to get your quest from Darius.
Anime time.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's time we discuss some of the season. I'm actually kind of glad DJ's not here. Mainly because we couldn't really talk about Witch from Mercury last time, because he had not watched whatever the newest episode was at the time. So we just basically tried to be as vague as possible, which I feel like you just can't do with the increasingly complex entity that is this show.
Oh yeah.
So
I might peace out during your discussion for that because I still want to watch that show at some point.
Yeah.
You'll just have to summon me back and via chat room.
I mean, we can just get started with it, and then you can go take care of whatever you want to do.
Sure, I'm just gonna take off my headphones, and you guys can summon me back when you're done talking about it.
Anyone who is not listening to this live and in our Discord, maybe skip a few minutes if you're planning on watching Witch from Mercury.
I will try to put in a timestamp.
That would be good.
That works in every player, but I'll try to put in some timestamps. I'll figure out how to do that finally. I should. I'm the engineer. All right.
Was it necessity is the mother of innovation or something?
Yeah, basically, All right, I'll be back.
All right, cool beans.
I'm very glad I caught up last night because I was a few episodes behind, but now we're here.
Yeah.
Soletta is the new Guel because she's down bad.
She's down very, very bad. The first thing I actually wanted to say about the show was I've finally come around on the ending theme. I did not like it until the end of this last episode, and I was like, no, I get it now. Okay, I get it.
Really? That shit hits so good?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that vocal style most of the time, and that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But with how it coincided with the end of the recent episode, with Suletta just trying to in vain dig bodies out from the wreckage of the school, which, by the way, why is it even open? Why did they not send all of the kids home after the first terrorist attack? But that's later.
They're like, surely this won't happen again.
Yeah, there's no way that something this bad could happen again. What are the odds?
It's like
twice in 1 week.
Like that Onion article that they post every time there's a shooting.
Yeah.
Like no way we could have known, says only place where this happens regularly.
Exactly. But I finally came around to the ending theme just because of the moment that started, and I was like, oh man, she is just down the lowest of the low, like clinging to whatever she possibly can to not only keep like some sense of hope and optimism, but I mean probably her sanity at this point.
Yeah. I mean, broken up with by her wife, broken up with by her mom, broken up with by her like original version of herself, broken up with by her Gundam. Like, god damn, girl.
Yeah, basically, yeah, and then broken up by her wife in the most homeward bound bullshit way possible.
Man. That was
with that
disrespectful. Miorine kind of bad.
Yeah, and I know, like, I mean, she's down bad too in her own way in a lot of a lot of factors, because I know she had that whole bullshit reason of like, I want to set Suletta free, so I'm gonna do all this stuff so she doesn't have to worry about the Gundam thing, and I'm like, that's in my mind incredibly selfish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody even bothered to ask Suletta about any of this at any time. They're just making all these decisions for her that take away all of her like rights and all of her consent at this point, under the guise of protecting her or whatever. And then of course she gets fucking dunked on Earth, and I feel bad for her now, but at the time I was like, yeah, fucking serves you right.
I think even though Miorine's reasoning is a little more harsh, I feel like her mom Prospera and Eri, I actually kind of liked that their intent was to sever her from the war crimes they were about to commit. Because in that sense, I feel like they were trying to like not pull her into the atrocities of war, which, you know, in most cases, that mom, that type of character, would have kept using Suletta until yes, pilot my Gundam, kill everything. And I think trying to remove her from that formula was actually a mercy in a way. And I think it's nice that Suletta was able to reconcile that so soon after, you know, being cut off. Now she kind of can understand where Eri and her mom were coming from, at least.
Yeah, it was an interesting moment given how Prosper's character has been depicted up to this point. It was a little surprising that, you know, you would kind of do that whole face turn there. But, you know, it's true that she, just like she always has been, just like Miorine and Ghoul and everyone else, is just, you know, deciding what Suletta will do and won't do, and taking away all of her free will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it made Suletta's like downfall essentially at this point like even worse to witness, because it wasn't like it was the negative consequences of any of her choices. It was she's experiencing the negative consequences of everybody else's choices for her.
Exactly.
So then you can't even take that solace as a viewer and like, well, she should have seen this coming, like she was too ambitious or, you know, naive, etc., etc. She didn't even have the chance to be naive, unlike Miorine, who's insanely naive in fucking many different ways, which is infuriating.
I think a lot of the main cast, though, are being propelled by like an outer force, and like the whole
driving... It's called capitalism.
Well, capitalism, one, but two, like the whole like sins of the father, sins of the mother kind of thing. Like all of these characters are in these conflicts because of their parents. Like Guel, because his dad was such a piece of shit leading the group or whatever. And then, of course, Miorine's dad and Prospera and all of them, like, they're all at this point because they're parents. So, I think it'll be interesting.
Turn it around a little bit, but yeah, still.
Yeah, you're right. But I think we're finally getting to the point where, like, things are breaking down far enough that they'll have their own agency in changing the story, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was about to say, too, is I think this has just been like a big build up to the catharsis of Suletta, like finally finding her free will and her own stance and opinions, instead of just, being willingly or otherwise ignorant, and being manipulated by her mom and everyone else and going along with whatever she's told. Now that she's been discarded by everyone who would use her as a tool or an ally or anything, she kind of has no choice, particularly as the protagonist of a series, but to find that free will and propel herself forward and actively drive the plot.
I also think for how dense the like political maneuvering is in this show, and like hard to follow if you're not like keeping up weekly and like really keeping the record straight on who's doing what for which group. I think aside from a little bit of confusion, it's been moving along nicely, and I feel like everything's been moving in concord with like what the main vision is with this like whole political game going on. So this is honestly one of my favorite Gundams in recent memory in terms of the coherence of the plot moving. And I think it's interesting too because I've watched lots of Gundam in my day, and the show that this Witch from Mercury most emulates to me is like Code Geass. This feels more like Code Geass than any other like Gundam show, really. But
I do think this needs to be the halfway point. If this is the ending that we're like 4 episodes away from, I think it's not gonna be that fulfilling. I think if this ends up being 4 cores like most Gundam shows do, then this is a good halfway point to be at.
Yeah, I think it will be, just because it has been such a slow build to this, and I don't think it is enough of a payoff for it to end in 4 more episodes. And like you said, most Gundams go on for at least 4 cores, so I guess maybe not as many modern shows, but I feel like this one has gotten enough. Well,
I mean, all the Gundam TV series, all the ones that people cared about, like G-Reco wasn't getting greenlit for 100 episodes, but
yeah, people can't get on board with Tomino shit anymore.
Yeah, right. But like Iron Blooded Orphans got 4 cores, Double O got 4 cores.
You're right. For some reason I thought Iron Blooded Orphans
got 8 cores. Yeah, so I feel like for something this big and successful, like I guess we could have talked about this as a news item. I didn't include it, but like Sunrise posted the earnings for the Gundam franchise for the past fiscal year or whatever from the Witch from Mercury era, and it is just so absurdly high, so much higher than it's been. So this show is doing well. So I feel like there's no reason it shouldn't get another 2 cores.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the most memorable Gundam that I've watched in a while as well. Like, I think it does a really good job of fleshing out all the characters and their motivations, in that you can see that there isn't like a super clear everybody's a good or a bad guy, except probably Suletta, and even then you couldn't see her as a bad guy, but she's also like a puppet of her mom, and she was like, yeah, I would fucking kill anybody if mom told me to.
Yeah, still blood on her hands.
Yeah, so there's still a good amount of blood on her hands, and she's been brainwashed, obviously, but there's still like no innocence here. And I think one of my favorite parts about it, from like the political and space corporatism intrigue portion, is the fact that like Shadiq and Mia Rene's mom, Prospera, one of those two, they essentially have the same goal. They're just taking 2 radically different ways to achieve it.
Yeah.
In normal, like, I guess I'm used to more like Gundam's always had very similar like themes, but for the most part it's been like Xeon v Earth or whatever. In this case, it was Shadiq wants to destroy space capitalism by taking it over from the inside and dissolving the company and passing all of the resources to Earth, essentially. And Prospera is just like, I'm going to do war crimes and frame the Benerit group so that I guess the governments come in and wreck them, and also if some of the people from the space corporations die, that's also a bonus.
Yeah, I feel like that's another telling sign that we're only halfway, because the whole thing with like Shadiq's stuff falling apart, and we're just like seeing that his infighting and all of these like corporate like fighting going on, they're all kind of just like little proxy wars to like the main issue of the space government and the Earthen rebellion kind of going on. So I feel like we've still yet to get to the big picture of like who the real antagonist is, you know? Because I thought the fight between Guel and Shadiq was really telling in that neither of them are technically in the wrong, but they've just been propelled in this way to have to fight each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, if I was trying to think of a way to frame the question other than are you team Shadiq or Prospera in terms of eating the space rich? But I'm pretty much just gonna frame it like that because it's the easiest way to do it. Which way would you prefer the Benner group to be decimated?
I don't know. It's a lesser of two evils thing, because like I get what Prosper is doing, trying to just like get rid of all the other like offshoot Gundams, because she's like, if we just get rid of or if we like sync all the technology into one and go into the data space, like there will be no reason for weapons or whatever. But she's making a lot of people kill each other to do it. And then Shadiq, it's the same thing, except he's like getting the students, involved in this war when like they really don't need to be. So I don't know. I don't want to pick a side.
I feel like overall Prospera has seemed like more of a bastard. But definitely just two evils, and both with justification and good intentions, good ideas, but lots of atrocities committed along the way.
Yeah,
I honestly don't know if Prospera. Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't really know if I would call Prospera's intentions really good because a lot of it is just revenge.
Right.
Shadiq's is look at how the Earth has been turned to trash and everyone on it thanks to the war profiteering and everything else that the corporations do. So I'm just gonna destroy all of that. And I get it, his like ways are evil, obviously. It's the ends justify the means type thing. But I would say at least he has some type of good intention. Prospera is just, I'm gonna kill everybody in the Benner group.
Yeah, I guess the she has bad intentions that may have good results, whereas a lot of villains have good intentions that have bad results. And
yeah.
her actions also have many bad results, but also fuck capitalism.
She's definitely living up to the Char clone, way of thinking, though, because I mean, it's the very same thing. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get revenge on this whole evil empire, and I'm gonna kill anyone in my way to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, she, you can sympathize a little bit and get behind like the revenge thing, but that certainly does not make you any less of a villain. It's just a classic villain trope. And she's had a lot of Gendo qualities over her time in the series, which is always a big red flag. Gendo plus a Char plus very calming, what is it, Mamiko Noto who voices her?
Yeah.
It's very terrifying combination.
It is. I can't wait to see when she goes unhinged mode, because it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Gendo is not the person you ever want to be compared against. Yeah, emulated or compared with.
Yes. Especially as a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I call this show Revolutionary Genesis Gundam. Got a lot of Utena, got a lot of Ava in there.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm glad it decided to do this downturn when it did, because there were some periods of this second core or whatever, where I was like, okay, this is starting to get like really complex, but nothing is actually happening. It's a lot of planning and like bureaucratic stuff, which normally I'm okay with. But eventually I was like, all right, let's put some of these, like, let's get these gears going. I'm seeing all of these people discuss their plans and what they're going to do, and there's a lot of buildup. And they just got to the point where I was like, could something please happen? And then, oh boy, did it fucking happen.
Yeah. Now get in the robot and make it happen.
Pretty much.
I think one of the other more interesting characters that we haven't touched on is Elan. Because, like, he was very easily set up to be, like, a guy to hate. And, like, I don't really sympathize with him still, but I don't know. I've liked his arc so far in that he's kind of, like, becoming his own character again. But, yeah, it's interesting, too, now because he's kind of, like, gone off on his own. I wonder how he will play into this because there's so many moving parts right now that it's, like, he's one of the last things I have to worry about, but yeah, really interesting after the last episode.
Well, he has such like a wild card aspect to him because he seems to be rather unpredictable in what he's going to do. Especially because he's well aware of like the atrocities the company has committed against him. Because unlike a Guel or a Shadiq, he isn't really like treated as a son or an heir or anything. He, from the get-go, was an expendable, altered human.
Yeah, he like knows his place, and
he knows his place. While at least the others were like, Guel's like, I'm the leader of this house, and Shadiq is, I'm the leader of this house, and
the investors are like, we don't care.
Yeah, pretty much. But at least they had that sort of thing to fall back on. But yeah, he did not. Elan was just, I'm here because, was it Pile, the company? I can't remember. Piel, I think is, I just can't remember how they pronounce it. But they were just like, nah, you're going to do what we say, and then we'll just incinerate you if you don't.
Yep.
All right, well, if that about covers it, I think we can call Kate back in, yes, no?
Yeah. Sure. Got some good Gundam talk.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it, to how it plays out. And I do hope we get more, because there's no way this could end anyways, like even remotely satisfactorily in like 4 episodes.
Yeah. No.
I am unmuted.
Nice.
Excellent. I hope you enjoyed your time.
Yep. Sitting here, make my little craft thingy.
Alrighty. Well, why don't we then shift, since Kate's back? Do you guys want to talk about stuff that's going on in Vinland Saga? Because Kate's watching that, right? Are you caught up with it?
I'm caught up. I've also, the manga, it's not deviating from the manga. So, I mean,
at the very least,
I'm 1 episode behind, and that really doesn't matter because I know what the hell is going on in the show anyway.
Yeah. That's how I felt, but I also wanted to get to this recent episode because it's like what this entire series has like built towards, and it's so good. But I feel the same way. I'm like so far ahead in the manga. I was like, I could take a break on this one, but it has been solid.
So it's been pretty, like a pretty loyal adaptation. Yeah.
It is expanding in places where it has the freedom to do so, but not very much because it is they're trying to keep it within a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I feel like they expand in some parts and like draw out parts for dramatic effect and then cut back on other parts that are like characterization moments, but a lot of it's like throwaway dialogue. Like I feel like a lot of it is like, like funny little Einer clips or quips that they just cut out because they're like, we're going to make him a little bit more like dramatic, serious feeling than silly as he is in the manga. But
yeah, he's very much just like dude bro in the manga, and they've given him a lot more depth. Like we never in the manga we never saw what happened in his village really, and we never saw like his backstory or any of the stuff. Like he was just kind of like, here's this other dude, and he's ride or die. But like, they've given him some very good justified rage. about everything happening.
It's interesting. They kind of started both seasons in that way of diverging. In that the first one, this was mostly content from the manga. I think like episode 4 or something was mostly new material, but they diverged in that they started off the first season chronologically with Thorfinn's backstory. And then same thing with the second season. They started off with Einar's backstory.
That is interesting.
I like how Einar is the Vinland Saga anime version of Obama's anger from the Key and Peele sketch.
Yeah.
And Thorfinn is like Obama.
Yeah, basically, because
he's the anger translator. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes to meet Canute, and he's just being pretty even keeled about stuff, especially since he's just been punched 100 times.
Yeah.
And then Einar's just going off.
Thorfinn's like, Canute, can you please leave the farm? And Einar's like, your Viking bullshit is dumb. Get it out of here. So fucking good.
It's like your toxic masculinity is ruining everything. It's like you're not wrong, but
why must you be such a dork about it? But I did get a kick out of that.
Griffith.
Yeah.
Now, granted, obviously his emotions are justified, since Einar has suffered his entire life almost as much as Thorfinn, and just he never took up the mantle to try and get revenge against any of the aggressors that have ruined his way of living. It's just funny because Thorfinn is surprisingly even keeled, and then Einar's just rolling up and just saying whatever comes to mind.
Einar is Thorfinn back when Thorfinn started out his journey, because Einar's only, what was he? He was like 16-ish when everything went to hell on him. Mm-hmm. So he's running several years behind in the character growth story arc.
Yeah, needs a bigger body count first.
Yeah, and the whole point of Thorfinn's like, no, you don't want a body count. It doesn't help. Exactly. None of this helps. He's like, revenge is not going to give you what you want. It's just not. You'll still be broken and hollow on the inside. You just have to deal with the grief in a more constructive manner.
I do like that. I know a lot of people complain about the pacing of this season, but I thought that the way that the secondary and tertiary characters got a lot more time, almost as much as Thorfinn and the main, the rest of the main cast. It all crescendoed in such a great way. I think Almar's character moment in the latest episode or two were so good, with him realizing bro, fighting sucks. I'm so scared. Let's just surrender. And him being, I think that line about him not having the courage to just take the insults was just so good and well delivered. Speaking of delivery, I feel like the voice acting from almost every character in this season has just been phenomenal.
Somebody needs to give Arnheid voice actress all the awards. She's such a phenomenal job.
Yeah, her and Einar, especially in in her final scene, was just so heart wrenching. I could not.
Yeah. I have such mixed emotions about Snake, partially because of that. Because at some points he's logical and kind of I don't want to say a protagonist type or a good guy. He's very neutral.
He's very when lawful.
Yeah, he's trying to help D&D, Thorfinn.
On the D&D alignment chart, he is neutral lawful. He is just he is just, he's got his own code of honor, and he sticks by it no matter what else is going on. He's very forthright with everything he does. He's like, no, I have to kill this guy. He killed 5 of my men. Yes, my men are asshole, jerk, ne'er-do-well thugs, but I still have, a duty to, lead these guys and avenge them. So therefore, justice has to be met out. And it's like, you may not like it, but that's what I'm going to do.
And the way that he presents it in those situations, I found myself like, yeah, I mean, he makes sense for the time, so I can't really, argue against it because of the way that, basically their own, socio-governmental system works. So I can't be like, no, Snake, that's wrong. I can't be like Amuro Ray and be like, no, war is bad. Because it's just, that's how it works. But then he has moments where, Arnhide is dying and he's just like, oh, she dead then. It's like, you heartless piece of shit.
I think on Snake specifically, it's interesting because I think Yukimura has said either in interviews or on his Twitter that he wanted to explore Snake's backstory a little bit, but because of serialization and wanting to move the main plot along, he couldn't really do it. But I thought that would be pretty cool if at some point we get a side story of his background and his time in the. I think it said he would have been a soldier in the Byzantine Empire or something.
Yeah, he would have been down in Constantinople, and they don't. He says it at some point. He says, "I was down in wherever. I was a soldier of wherever," and whatever he says is the Viking word for Constantinople. So he I want to see that. He's literate. He was clearly something clearly went wrong, and he was wandering around and I want to see the real Iron Fist Kettle. I want to see who that guy was. Maybe he'll do a sequel series or sequel prequel series that'll cover Snake's backstory after Vinland Saga's done. That'd be cool.
Yeah, Disney Plus will give him a spinoff. They give everyone a spinoff.
Right.
Yeah, really.
That would be cool just because Snake does feel like an outlier in terms of all the other characters. Besides Thorfinn now is very much an outlier, and the old head of the house, he's very much comes to terms with himself, but Snake was very much among the other middle-aged Viking men, he's definitely built different, and I am interested to see how he became that way.
Better Call Snake.
Yeah. I need this is the Snake Eater remake I want.
There you go.
But goddamn, I have no enemies. The whole sequence, just when they announced the second season, that was the moment I have just been waiting for. It's just the thing that made Thorfinn one of my favorite protagonists of all time, and I think the adaptation killed it. So I'm very happy with, even though I do think it being a very straight-laced adaptation can be good and bad in some ways, but I'm happy with how the last few episodes have been handled for sure.
Yeah, this week's episode was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I thought even following that, Knut's speech was also super powerful and well done, and I feel like they really went full throttle for his speech, really made it menacing, had some really cool shots with him too. So I think that helped at least solidify his motivations a bit more. And it's because he's been kind of on the outskirts this whole season, talking with his dad's head and stuff. And we really have no reason to sympathize with him or think what he's trying to do is worthy. But I feel like he at least made a case, even if it, isn't the right way.
Yeah, his case is, I am a holy warrior of God. Deal with it kind of situation. It's
well, he's essentially God abandoned all the Vikings, so now I'm gonna gather them all up and fucking fight God. Which under most situations, I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah. Let's follow that storyline. That sounds cool. But in this situation, I'm like, no, but Thorfinn just wants to farm. Just let the man farm.
Knut's like, I'm gathering a Shin Megami Tensei party. Join me, Thorfinn.
He's like, no, I want to go find Vinland. Leaf's all like, did I tell you why I left there? No, okay.
Let's get a Leaf spinoff as well, just at the same time. See what that guy was doing, picking up all these various Torfins.
Yeah, exactly. The Torfin collector.
Yeah.
Technically, he only collected one. He just found a bunch of other people, and he's like, nope.
All right, I'll keep you, Bug Eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're cool.
Yeah. I want him to just adopt every Thorfinn he comes across and rename them all after whatever attribute differentiates them from the Thorfinn he's looking for.
Yeah.
Well, I think something that I'm very curious as to how it's going to play out too, because we didn't really see him at all the last episode. Obviously, you guys know, but was it Torgil, the big brother, the one he just left, but he didn't say where he was going or what he was doing, and I don't think there's a way for him to get off, the farm. Not that he would. That doesn't seem to be his whole shtick, but he just kind of abandoned everybody for the most part because they refused to die in vain. But
that guy's so broken.
Yeah, I mean he's the ultimate product of the time period.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when he said to Olmar, like, your honor is worth more than your life or whatever, it's like, okay, dude.
Yep, it's like this guy's fully bought in.
I don't really remember what happens, but I do think it was funny how he literally like inches away from killing Canute, and then he books it, and Canute's like, man, I wish he'd fight for me again. That dude's pretty good.
He's like, he's got guts for days.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I mean, he was a bodyguard, and he's just like, nah, I'm gonna fight you, rawr. He's like, it's like, you're dumb. You could have just kept being a bodyguard, but no.
Honestly, I could see him coming back. Canute would be like, yeah, your dad's a bitch. Join my army. You can fight some more. And he's like, you know what? Yeah. I'm down.
That does seem like a move he would do because it is rather like it's a pragmatic maneuver to make. If he truly wants to build this army that will fight God, might as well be the guy that almost killed you. So I could see him making that decision. Now, granted, I don't think his number 2 guy would be cool with it, considering he lost an eyeball, but
I think he'd let bygones be bygones.
I suppose.
They're Vikings after all.
Or Igons.
Igons be Igons.
Ooh. Writing it down.
I just remembered what happens to the older brother. Yeah. I'm not gonna bring it up because they haven't gotten there yet. They'll say, and you'll be like, really?
I'm just interested in where there's 2 episodes left, right? So like I'm just interested where they're gonna end it. Like if they're going to kind of, sort of start the next arc and then cut it off, or if they're just going to try to like end it on like a finite point that allows it to either come back or not. But from what I know, the director wants to like fully adapt it as long as Mappa lets them. So
yeah,
I mean they have a clean stopping point,
right?
They straight up showed it in a preview.
That's true.
In the preview video.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that was like the last scene. It will be Carthetic.
the bro moment.
And the first season, they changed some things around, changed some of the pacing, added some material, and ended at the end of the prologue, as you would expect them to. This season, they've changed some things around, added some material, changed some of the pacing. So almost certainly that was all for the plan to also end this season at the, expected stopping point.
Yeah.
Is there another time skip coming?
No, not right away.
But
the next arc directly follows this arc.
Yeah. but you can tell that, this entire season has been a very like solid arc. Like it totally makes sense that it started where it did and it will end where it does.
Mm.
One thing so at Anime Central, which is where I saw Bran for 5 minutes, they had, the Vinland Saga team, some of the Vinland Saga team there. And in addition to like premiering the episode that was airing the couple days later and stuff like that, they had a panel, they talked about it. And one interesting note from that is that Vinland Saga is basically being made for us. Like, it's not successful in Japan. They're making more seasons of it specifically for the Western audience because it's way more popular here. And that's why all of the theme songs in the second season are all entirely in English.
That's so nice of them.
Guess that makes sense. I feel like Yukimura himself is very in tune to his international audience, and I feel like he didn't really feel like he came into his own as an author until he saw the response overseas. So that's awesome. I'm glad at least we could do that.
Yeah.
Keep him going.
It's weird that it took 8 years for the manga to get licensed. Because like
and then it wasn't selling particularly well for a while.
Right. That's right. Every volume they'd threaten us. They'd be like, "You guys don't buy more copies, it's not getting another volume." And of course now it's flying off the shelves because the anime is out. But yeah, that's all very surprising because, and I guess, the fact that it didn't get an anime for 14 years also meant that, it didn't get that huge boost that it would have gotten otherwise. But yeah, it's such a Western series. It's literally, eventually about reaching North America. It's got all of these kind of tropes and aesthetic choices that, Western audiences gravitate towards so much. So yeah, it seems like it should have been a no-brainer and a huge hit all along. It took so long to actually get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it is a show that I can recommend to my friends that aren't like super avid anime watchers, but like they pick their choices here and there, and it's like easy enough to give them a recommendation like, oh, it's like it's not Game of Thrones, but I mean it's in that lane, and they're like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Right, exactly.
There's also really nothing anime-y about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little. I mean, there are a couple characters that do some crazy shit that's like totally, like absurd. But in the fact that it's like this is based off of Norse sagas of legendary like men and stuff, and it's like it fits because it was always like quasi historical but also quasi mythological feats happening, and I feel like it's like, yep, and that's how we're gonna portray it. It's like this dude is 8 feet tall and is
right
out of control.
I mean, to be fair, the show would be much less enjoyable if Thorkel wasn't in the cast. So,
speaking of characters that need a spin-off,
yeah, for real.
He comes back in the next arc in a big way.
But his voice actor passed away, right? So,
oh, I didn't know that.
Wasn't he? Isn't he the guy the guy that does Blackbeard? Isn't that guy Joseph Joestar? Or is that or am I mixing things up?
Okay, so Joseph Joestar, that was Unsho Ishizuka. He did pass away a few years ago. I think Blackbeard was okay. Am I remembering this right? Is Blackbeard Akio Otsuka and Gold Roger is Chikao Otsuka? Because Chikao Otsuka is Akio Otsuka's father, who passed away a few years ago, and he voiced Gold Roger. Blackbeard's English voice actor did pass away, but Akio Otsuka is who voices Thorkel, and he is Yeah, he's still alive and active.
Oh, good.
You're
okay.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I mix them up sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with what Kate said, and it's historical fiction combined with the mythology of that time. So you get your real figures and your mythological figures kind of thrown into the same pot. With the backbone of the story of Hamlet, which is the basis of Hamlet, which I only realize is the backbone of a lot of this story because of the Northmen, which is a direct adaptation of that myth and is very similar to Vinland Saga.
The movie is basically Vinland Saga.
Yeah. So I realized. Sorry, what?
I was just saying almost exactly like Vinland.
Yeah. So I realized based on that Yukimura took a lot of that story in his telling of these historical accounts and Norse mythology. But also even like, the Game of Thrones comparison, like, if you're cool with Game of Thrones, there's certainly nothing more anime about Thorkel than, the mountain from Game of Thrones or any of those larger than life figures. So yeah, I think it's very much within that vein. It goes over the top in the ways that Western audiences are perfectly comfortable with their Western dramas going over the top.
Yeah. And that's essentially what I meant. It's not anime as in like there is no weird like comedy or
Thorfinn's like, oh no, I'm late for Viking practice. Puts a piece of bread in his mouth.
Yeah, or like cultural references to Japanese things that we wouldn't get, right. Or any of those typical tropes that you
falling
see.
out of their shirts.
Yeah, or 1,000-year-old dragon girls that look like 3-year-olds. Like there isn't any of that stuff going on.
Oh, that's in the next arc, actually.
Ah, good, excellent. I'll like it even more.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to Lolly Saga yet.
I'm not writing that down.
No,
I know.
Not worth it.
Not bringing that into being. That never happens in the story. Thank God.
Speaking of the North mythology references, I really loved how they took a spin in the most recent episode about Canute and the tide and him not being able to like stop it. Because from what I read in the original story, he does the same thing where he like proves that like, look, a man like me can't stop the tide. That's God's power. But like in the original telling, it's King Canute proving that like God is the highest power and you can't refute that. Whereas I like how in the anime, it is his leading motivation that God is the highest power, so let's kick his ass. So I think it's really cool that how Yukimura spun that to make him like the antagonist.
Yeah, it's a very clever usage of all the fun things that he picked out of history and mythology. It's kind of like Fate does in a way. In how you can just pick out historical figures and mythological figures from any era and throw them all together. Except in that case it's all magic. In this one, it's just like, well, what if all of these people did interact in this way and had this kind of drama unfold between them? And yeah, it's very clever and well researched, but also telling his own very thoughtful narrative and philosophy behind it. And yeah, like Kane said, there is nothing Japanese about it, especially in the second season where the producer took extra measures to make there be nothing Japanese about it because Japan didn't like it enough.
Yeah, Japan didn't care. We did.
Yeah, Japan didn't care. So now all the songs are in English. There's no like Japanese text or anything. So
you might as well cater to the demographic that likes your shit.
Exactly. So
I'm glad you brought up Fate because that's another series with a anime-ified historical character in Iskandar who is also voiced by Akio Otsuka.
That's right. Yep.
Funny.
The difference being that Fate is anime as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. I hope we get the next arc of Vinland Saga after this is over. Even if it's several years down the line.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they just announce it. I'll be happy with just that.
Yeah, that'd be good. I don't want them to get too caught up. I mean, I'm sure that the manga is going to be winding down relatively soonish, but I don't want them to like have an even longer gap between like third and fourth season.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll see what Mappa's going to cook up because
I know they're.
Yeah, I think they've probably got enough on their plate that we're still a few years out. But by the time the first season was coming out, we already had a solid 6 course of material to adapt. So we could easily get a season 3 of the same length at any point.
All right, what's up next?
I feel bad for any show that comes after this because we've talked so much about Vinland and Gundam.
We have a couple that we can go over. Part of me wants to, because I'm trying to look at our lists and shows that we all sort of share together, and one of those is Demon Slayer, but I just really don't have anything to say about it.
I
got like nothing. I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah, they do be fighting demons though.
They be fighting demons. I did laugh at some of it for the first time. So and laugh at the comedy. Granted, it wasn't the normal comedy. It was Muichiro just dunking on the pot demon near the I laughed at all that. I thought that was hilarious.
Funny. Yeah.
But that's not typically what their comedy is. And maybe part of that is why I laughed, because it was just so different, because it was just straight-faced insults.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Muichiro's dry comedy. It's definitely a breath of fresh air from the normal Zenitsu screaming and being a pervert and a coward.
Not even Zenitsu, everyone's screaming.
Everyone's screaming, yes.
Yeah, everyone's screaming as a joke.
All of the protagonists scream every line, it's true.
Yep. And the swordsmith people, when they scream all the time.
True.
Ugh. But just having Muichiro, it was just like deadpan, dry humor. It was incredibly refreshing, just as you said. I was like, oh yeah, this is funny. They could do this more.
Thank God for the one quiet boy in the show.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting in that I do like the show and I'm still watching it, but I am seeing a growing contingent of people that are sort of falling off of the show because it is so formulaic at this point. And I struggle to disagree with them. I don't blame anybody for it, because it's we've mentioned it a bunch of times. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get what you're gonna get out of it, and it's not really gonna try to turn anything on its head or whatever. And I've felt that a little bit at times this season, where I'm just like, all right, yep, here's the part where they almost lose, but then they don't lose, and here's the part where they almost lose again, but they don't lose, and here's the part where they almost win, but they don't.
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten past the honeymoon phase of the Demon Slayer hype, and people are now getting fatigued because they're like, oh yeah, this is just what shonen anime is,
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much being carried by Ufotable, because the anime still looks amazing, maybe more amazing, as amazing as it ever has looked. But
well, their compositing is good.
Yeah.
They occasionally have legitimately good key animation. But yeah, I think that's always been the case, and I guess it was just so stunning when it was new that people ignored the fact that the material is entirely generic. Because I don't think anyone has ever been wowed by the Demon Slayer manga. It's entirely in the adaptation that makes it, so exhilarating. So I think that's always been the case. And yeah, I think they continue making it slightly better as they go along, which is impressive. But you basically know what you're getting into at this point. And Demon Slayer, it's a Marvel movie. You go into those movies, you know what to expect. It's going to follow a formula. If that's what you're looking for, it's going to be satisfying. It's going to be a good time. You're going to enjoy yourself. It's going to look great. Super high budget, high quality. High production values, but yeah, it's not really reinventing anything.
Is it? What are you guys' opinions on this? Is this a detriment of the fact that the battles take so long in Demon Slayer? Like, we have these fights with these demons, and I get that's the whole conceit of the show, but when they have to stretch a fight out like 9, 10, 11, 12 episodes, you do get kind of fatigued from that, and like, if they're about to win, they won't, and if they're about to lose, they won't. So it's kind of hard to be invested in the drama of the moment, because you're like, well, they're not going to kill this demon now. There's like 14 episodes left in this core. What will happen after that? And of course, it doesn't happen, which makes it even more predictable, and sometimes, like, almost boring in the story aspect of it. Like, anybody who's watched Demon Slayer up to this point, or a lot of shonen just in general, could probably like easily predict every story beat. Maybe not the details of how they happen, but like every like major event and which ones will and won't happen. Like, I was honestly surprised that Muichiro beat the pot demon already, because I expected that fight to go all the way until the goddamn end of the show. Because that's just how this show plays out. As we've seen, like, just the battles are so long and take just forever.
I feel like there's the two main reasons why they feel so dragged out. One is because just like natural power scaling, they're gonna have to fight harder demons, which means like they can't beat them in less time than the previous ones, kind of thing. But two, the fact that like the Demon Slayer like continuously moves into like new territories, and Tanjiro is meeting like new Hashiras and new characters. It doesn't help that the writing is like segmented to be like battle, midway point, character background, like dire climactic point, character background, finale. And like they're doing this going back and forth between multiple battles, doing multiple character backgrounds and stuff. So like I feel like it's just naturally getting dragged out because the writing doesn't really allow it to play out any other way.
And in addition to that, just from kind of a logistical standpoint, this is something that actually people in my Discord server that I'm a part of were just talking about yesterday in regards to the show, because a lot of them were like kind of falling off of it. And I think some of them had read the manga and were actually disappointed by the anime. Like, it looked amazing, of course, but in terms of the pacing of the adaptation, and I think it's, we've moved over the years away from the pattern of all the shonen manga just get infinitely long running adaptations. There's still a few of those, of course, but for the most part, it used to be all that way, and now most of the new ones get 1 or 2 core seasons at a time, which is great for most reasons, and obviously quality is a huge one. Like, you get to build up that quality way more when you have time off in between, instead of having to shit out an episode every week. So that's a huge one. And pacing, of course, you don't have to draw everything out. You don't have to fill it with all this filler. You can theoretically just make a season when you've got enough material to adapt it at whatever pace is appropriate, and you do that, and it's ideal. However, ironically, what that leads to is the fact that TV cores are a set number of weeks, and so you need to make your seasons 12 to 26 or 12 to 13 episodes or 24 to 26 episodes. And there's not a lot of wiggle room around that. So what that results in is either you do what like My Hero Academia does, which is like, all right, this is the end of this entire chapter of the series. Now the final chapter will begin next. Oh, we still have 4 episodes in the season. Okay, you're getting like 5 minutes of the final chapter, and then you'll wait a year. Which is one option, and it lets you keep the pacing how you want it to be with very awkward season breaks. Or the other option is to have your seasons line up with the content in a way that makes more sense, but what that results in is shit. This arc can only really cover 7 or 8 episodes, but we got 12 or 13 to fill out. So yeah, we're gonna be drawing stuff out a little bit. It turns out, and that's definitely Demon Slayer. The seasons are literally named after the arcs at this point, so they have no choice but to kind of box themselves in and make sure that each of those stories lasts the full core, whether or not they deserve to.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. You're hitting the nail on the head with like it's really a structural issue more than anything that they like you said, they box themselves in, so they're like, well, we called it the Sword Village arc, so I guess we gotta cover this whole thing in this span of time.
I wonder though if you could plan it so that at the very least the battles don't take that long. Like I wouldn't have minded another episode where we learn more about how the village works or something along those lines, so that at least the battle portion, which is what feels the most drawn out, is a little less drawn out. That's
yeah,
that is what it is. But like I wouldn't mind an episode, an extra one where they are not fighting the demons. You could still make that somewhat interesting.
Yeah, I think they're just, hesitant to take the liberties of like fleshing out the story in ways that weren't explored in the source material. Whereas you can always make a fight longer. Dragon Ball Z made a science out of it. So yeah, I think that's probably where that comes in. And one thing that a lot of those people that I was talking about were saying, which Demon Slayer did, is you can make a movie if you don't have enough material for a full core. Just do it as a movie. They've already done it. It was the most successful movie in the history of Japanese cinema. So, that is an option that maybe they should be considering more often than they do.
I would love that, personally.
Yeah, I might have actually enjoyed this arc more if it was a movie.
Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot.
All right, well, we can shift on from that then, and switch to...
I feel like we would be doing Chris a disservice if we didn't talk about Skip and Loafer. But
I kind of I am conflicted to talk about that because DJ's not here. And I know that he also very much loves the show.
Well, I mean, he'll get to be in on the season final episode.
That's true.
I hope.
That's true. So do you want to talk about Skip and Loafer then? Fuck him.
His fault for being busy.
That's right. Not taking time out of his schedule. Who does he think he is?
I mean, you did start off this episode by saying, I'm kind of glad DJ's not here.
For which from Mercury, context.
No,
context matters.
It's in the stone now.
Not on the internet, it doesn't.
Yeah, I guess Kay could just clip that and post it everywhere. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do that then. Though I have not watched the newest episode, though I don't really mind if you talk about stuff that's in it because I'll still watch it anyway.
I haven't watched any of it, so I'm banking on you.
So what is it? Just you and me, Kestrel?
Yeah.
Very good. Do you like the show?
I do like the show.
Whoa, do tell. This is the show that I think collectively my household looks forward to the most because Emily is really invested in it at this point as well.
Same. Yeah, actually after our previous episode, Caitlin was like, I want to watch that show you guys were talking about. And then we didn't end up watching it together. And then I went off to Chicago for the convention. And then she picked me up at the airport and she's like, so I watched all of Skip and Loafer and I need more of it in my life right now.
It is very, very good and enjoyable. I know DJ was saying last we were talking about how warm the show is, and that part is still true. But I do appreciate that we are getting some more background, especially background that isn't necessarily wholesome. It adds a little layer of drama to the whole thing that sort of elevates it beyond just like high school stuff. which I think is really cool. Though obviously growing up in America, the idea of, oh no, a 6th grader was drinking alcohol is not that big of a deal to me. So that part just culturally is hard to relate to, just because we have kid celebrities and all that shit doing that stuff all the goddamn time because Hollywood is a cesspool. But it is what it is. I feel bad for him though, because he like punishes himself by denying, I don't even want to say like a happy high school life, but really just like a normal one. For something that I'm interested in, unless they explained it in the newest episode, like what he could have really done. Because was it up to him as a 6th grader for her to take the fall for him, the model girl, or like his family / agent? Because then it's not really his fault, and she's just lashing out at him because he's the easiest to do so.
Yeah, I think it was just the circumstances. She blames him for her involvement. But it's not at all fair to blame.
Yeah, I'd say Shima is generally innocent, I would say, especially because unless it was his idea as also like a 10-year-old to go get blasted at a karaoke bar, I'm sure he's just as much a victim of the circumstances in that respect as well. Man, am I glad they didn't do what it felt like the show was going to do when he first meets her in the city and they go walking and holding hands, and it kept juxtaposing between Shima doing that and Minami having her like slumber party. I was like, they better not do a thing where she looks out the window and sees them.
Yeah,
because that's what it felt like, and I was like, we don't even know, like, have a location established of where either of these houses really are in relation to each other, like where they are versus where well, I guess Minami's aunt lives. Not so much her, but still, I'm glad they teased it but didn't actually do it. Yeah, it's a good time. I also really like the friendship that has developed between Blonde Girl and Glasses Chan. I think especially in that you just see them hanging out. Like, you didn't really get an episode where they do anything together to foster their relationship. You just start seeing them together everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this fun little sort of friendship that's building in the background as a result of them hanging out and not necessarily getting their own episode where they have like a big bonding moment. It's just, Step Brothers style. Are we best friends now? I guess so.
Yeah, they are characters who exist in this world. They had, their own story off screen. That's fine.
Yep. It sort of adds to the charm almost, because then you can just kind of see them hang out and be like, well, they look like they're getting along, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate all the characters and their interactions, and the drama around Shima, especially, and the irony that he wants to put acting out of his mind, but in fact his entire life is just putting on an act and being the person that he thinks everyone around him wants him to be the everyone's friend character in his school life, and not really letting himself be true to himself or true to his friends even, and what will inevitably, presumably, happen where he slowly comes out of that shell and is willing to be honest and open with people.
Yeah, very much I'll be everyone's friend, but also keeping up that impenetrable emotional wall around me so nobody actually learns anything about who I am or what I do or what I enjoy.
Exactly.
Which will only get you so far, especially when you find out that making long-lasting, deeper relationships is actually fun and fulfilling.
Yeah, it's very cute seeing their respective vulnerabilities as they kind of feel each other out as very different kinds of characters and different priorities and worldviews, and seeing each other's charms and positive qualities while they can't see that within themselves. It's very good dynamic and one that, will eventually lead to those big moments of character growth, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about like Nao-chan just being just complete, like the decision to have her character be just completely upfront about who she is?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
I was shocked, to be honest. Like I think it's cool as hell, but I really wasn't expecting it. I figured it was going to be something that you had to just use all of the context clues to figure out who Nao-chan is. But then she's like, "Please tell your friends I was born biologically male," and I was like, "Whoa!" So they just getting it all out there, aren't they?
Yeah, that was really cool because
she's which feels rather bold for anime.
Yeah,
like
totally.
It's because they're just right out there. It is what it is, and then everyone just accepts it and moves on, and it's nice and perfect.
Yes, they are all good people. They all embrace her and love her. And the fact that she's comfortable enough, even though of course she has to endure, the whisperings of people on the train or whatever. She's comfortable enough in her skin to be like, well, if I've got to go incognito to spy on my niece, might as well just dress up as a man.
Yep.
I've got the body for it. And then to be like, just in case any of your female friends are, weirded out when they come to find out that your aunt is biologically male, just let them know ahead of time to put that out in the open. And then they're all like, we love your aunt. She's the best.
Well, especially redheaded girl like that. She gets like surprisingly close at this point, based off of their interactions at the zoo. And then when she leaves that sort of slumber party because she was nervous about having to talk about relationships and things and didn't want it to get awkward. So they actually foster this interesting bond. And I think Now is the one who says that she's reminded her like of a younger version of herself, like hiding who she really is behind a veneer of like fashion and confidence and things of that nature.
Right. Yeah. Which is, definitely a common theme throughout the show, because also what Shima does in his own way. And the blonde girl kind of talks about it a little bit, where like in middle school, she kind of put up, a certain front, certain appearances, and it didn't work out. And so now she's just open and honest and, kind to everyone. And I think, you get a lot of those trope subversions in, what appear to be archetypes for these kinds of characters. The very, like, gorgeous girl and the initially kind of, like, catty, fashion-oriented girl. They both just develop into these really sincere and fleshed out characters and friends. And they all have their different character types and their different aspects to them, but they all blend really well as a collective.
It's the only part of the entire show that I still struggle with occasionally is them talking about how beautiful the model girl was. I'm like, all you girls have the, blemish-free faces, perfectly symmetrical. Everybody looks good in everything that they wear all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, we don't got any pimples. We don't got any scars.
I don't know how I feel about the blushes. The blushes always kind of weird me out. They're like always too low or something.
Oh, like they go under their cheeks and they're almost like at their upper lip. Yeah,
it's kind of weird. Like they look like they're injuries or something some of the time. I'm like,
they're burns.
Burn your face or something. Oh no, I'm just blushing like I do in 75% of my scenes. All right. Just at the bottom of your face. That's cool.
I'm going to go with the fact that there are no good noses. Just as always. No good noses can't place the blush successfully.
In the blush on the anime girl.
Yep. that'll be at an anime-based birthday party, like pin the nose on the anime on the anime child.
It's like that Mario Party mini game where like you look at Mario's face and you have to recreate it. They're like, where did the blush go exactly?
Yeah, but this is the show that definitely like the household looks most forward to, and it's definitely a much needed show for me this season because all of the others I'm watching are so sad, except for Mashal. But Mashal's in a weird spot. I almost just kind of watch it. I don't know because I'm already watching it.
Yeah.
I don't have any strong. Yeah, I passively watch it.
Passive media consumption.
Yeah, but all the other shows, the Witch from Mercury, the Vinland Sagas, the Hell's Paradise, because I forgot to include that on my list, are all serious and depressing in their own ways.
Right.
But yeah, let's see. I think the three of us are watching Hell's Paradise, if we want to talk about that for a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Brian, why don't you kick it off?
So I'm having this weird thing with it where like I am enjoying it, but I guess the thing that's still the most intriguing to me is like the world building aspect and like creature designs and like the background arts and stuff are really compelling, and like I really want to know more as they go deeper, like how much more is it going to spiral into like complete hellscape, psychedelic, weird demon shit. Because like so far, I like the main cast of characters too, but like I don't know, I feel like there's something about it that's not as compelling to me as like I thought it would be. I feel like the animation sometimes is a little janky, but no, it's been interesting. I guess I'm just still not as fully invested as I want to be with it, but I also just don't have a lot of time to feel invested in a lot of these shows. So like I binge them in like 2 or 3 episodes a piece. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I feel like I've been wanting to read the manga for so long, and I feel like maybe revisiting that after the anime's done airing might give me a reinvigorated appreciation for it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm at like a weird middle ground with it right now. I think it's still a good show. I just don't exactly know what I'm gonna feel by the end of the show, I guess.
I feel bad for the fact that I don't even remember his name. The blonde-haired guy is on like the cover art.
Oh yeah.
And like it didn't even last like an episode and a half.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that too because the way they set it up where it's like, oh, they met his sensei and they're having their background and stuff. I'm like, oh man, sensei's gonna sacrifice himself for these two, and then whoop, rug pull. It's the other way around. I thought that was kind of an interesting twist to it.
Yeah, I appreciate the lack of plot armor, the expendability of the characters.
Mm-hmm. I like the fights in general. Like, I think I'm enjoying them and their action more than Demon Slayers. I think they're just like more visceral, and it's mostly because I love a good like well animated hand to hand combat, like close quarters. So when Gabimaru was fighting the one hermit and just like doing all these, fucking Street Fighter spin kicks and dragon punches and all this shit, I was really enjoying it, especially when the hermit was like, "Oh no, you broke my neck again." Like, why must you be so annoying?
Yeah, I do like the attention to detail on like the swordsmanship aspect of all the Asaimon too. Like when Sagiri started like blocking all of the hits from like the giant baby guy, I thought that was like a really cool moment.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they're going to tackle this like inner sanctum area. because there are so many of them. And I know Gabimaru was like, oh, so they're just monsters, they're not gods, so we can defeat them. And I'm like, man, but nobody has yet, and I don't even know if they've gotten all that close. Like, in any way. Like, it's gonna take some serious, I don't know, planning and effort just to beat one, let alone all of them. And we don't really know in the power structure, unless I missed it, where the one that was fighting everybody and that Gabimaru got into like its main monster form, like where that sits on the power structure. So I'm tempted to see how they plan on beating them, like if they just find a general weakness. Like there were flashes of it when Gabimaru was fighting, but I don't know if he was able to really ascertain anything from that exchange other than there must be a weakness somewhere because I kicked it and it hurt.
Man, I also don't know how to feel about Gabimaru's whole like motivations, because like the way that they use his wife as like his main motivator to get back, I just don't have a good feeling about it. Like they almost portray her as a character that is already dead and he has like these fond memories of her, but like his whole mission is to like get back and be able to be with her, and I just don't feel like he's gonna get that. I don't know. It's weird. I feel like this series is too brutal that I feel like he's going to like get back and they will have already like this like bad guy of the head of his clan that is like holding her captive. I can't see them this like going in a good direction for him, but I don't know.
Yeah, they do show her in very like aspirational ways. But yeah, with the mystery of not knowing her fate, since the story hasn't even attempted to see outside of the island or any of these people's backgrounds in any way but the past tense. Yeah, I understand your feelings there. And I'm banking on and hoping that his wife is not only like a physical character that he interacts with and that he wants to be with, but also is like the manifestation of a normal, peaceful life that she introduced to him and that he also wants, so that even if she's fucking dead, he can, I don't know, move on in a way. Like she's more than a person. She represents an idea of escaping the like endless violence of his previous life.
Yeah.
But we shall see.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that DJ said a few weeks ago that this show, Demon Slayer, and Tengoku Daimakyo all had weird fish-human hybrid monsters in the same week.
Big theme in all the anime studios.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess we can also move on. Castro, I don't know if you had anything else to say about it. I know you rated it highly.
Yeah, I mean, I am still really intrigued by all of the world building and the setting and the creatures, and just the uncertainty of how they overcome this because of how, otherworldly and powerful they are. And yeah, that's all still really intriguing, and I think for the most part it looks really good choreography and everything. It definitely doesn't feel like the big shonen hit that maybe I expected it to by now. So I don't know if it will do something to get into that kind of category, but part of that might also be because it is doing things differently, and I appreciate it for that. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I remember you saying, but like at the beginning of the season and beforehand, that this is kind of positioned to be the new hotness.
Right. And
yeah, it really hasn't done that yet. Can't really explain why or know why. Sometimes it just do be like that, but
yeah,
there's still time.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these series, like, there will be one really big climactic episode that's like really exceptionally directed and animated, and maybe that will be the the watershed moment where everyone jumps on board. But yeah, I feel like it hasn't had anything big like that yet. It's just kind of like, introducing its weird little world to us, and we're along for the ride, and lots of mysteries out there, but no big action spectacle to like share with your friends.
Yeah, even if like Demon Slayer's on a bit of a decline, it's still, going up against like main shonen heads still watching stuff like that. And then like it also is like maybe not getting audiences that would normally not watch shows like that. It could just be like a weird timing audience dynamic that it's just like not capturing for some reason.
Indeed. Well, I'm sure it'll get some hype eventually. Like something will come to a head on this fucking hellscape of an island.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, I say it's safe we can move on to another show and just bide our time here. I think, let's see, looking at the list, we can talk about Mashal a little bit, because I think it's the last show that the three of us are watching before it gets into like more twosies and stuff. I know there's probably not a ton to say other than the gag still works.
Yeah, MASH is still very much hard carrying.
Yep. He's hard carrying. The gag still works, and it had a weird delay that I'm not sure what it is. Maybe you guys know, other than just production delay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of shows I've been watching have been running into the random recap episode week. Like Oshinoko just had one last week. I think Gundam had one in the past month or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still at a weird point with it where I still definitely prefer the manga, and that's just because I feel like the comedy itself just like works better in a manga format. There's just something not as impactful in the way the comedy is directed, where like they set up a bit, and then like before Mash gives his like deadpan delivery, they have that little like silly sound effect and like a pastel background behind him. For some reason, that just like doesn't work with me as well as just like a straight deadpan expression from the manga. I don't know. I don't know. It isn't hitting, and also the production itself like isn't that impressive, save for like a few scenes, like when he was fighting like the iron bike guy. Besides that, it's been pretty lukewarm, I would say. It's also very passive watching for me, as y'all were saying.
Yeah, I attribute that mainly to the fact that its story is bland and I don't think it really cares about it too much. It's more of a jokes vehicle.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that we're also getting into the content in the last leg of this season that is very much straight up shonen action, battle action, and like the comedy kind of takes a bit of a backseat because they're going to be fighting these Meiji Lupus guys, and it's going to like jump from battle to battle. Like, here, let's have Lance have his battle, and let's have Dot have his battle, and let's have Finn have his battle. And I feel like this is the first time when the series, when I was reading it and reviewing it, that like it started to become more in line with the thing it was parodying rather than being a parody. And I thought that was kind of dangerous waters for it. But then once like Mash himself came back into the forefront of it, like it gets back into its like little comedy hole, and I think that's where it works best. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it pans out once it goes like straight up action mode. I feel like at that point I just have to hope that the production itself picks up and is able to like pull off the action. Otherwise, like it's gonna fall flat a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, especially with the fight between the two characters who are like complete weaklings. And so there's like no basis of any idea how they're gonna do it. So I'm sure it'll probably be some type of like either weird ass pull, or they're stronger than they ever let on because of some very specific situational tactics.
Yeah, I think it will be cool to see the magic powers animated, because they start to get into like the seconds and thirds levels magic as they fight stronger dudes, and those have some pretty neat designs and how they structure it. So I think those will be fun to watch at the very least. But yeah, I think as it stands, it needs a little shaking up.
Yeah, like I often just think about, like, if you took away the Saitama isms, the One Punch Man material, and the Harry Potter references, like, would the show have anything left?
No.
Like, it's really just Saitama goes to Hogwarts the whole time. I will say there have been a few gags that I have like actually laughed at, so that it's doing well for that. It's true that it's surprising that the gag still works, so I'm relatively impressed by that. I think the like big cooking sequence where it just ends up with a cream puff. I think that was probably my favorite bit so far.
I was watching the whole time and it still became a cream puff.
Exactly.
How do you do that?
That was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, Mash is an A+ character in like a C show. So it's just like, it's very weird. And I think the author kind of got trapped in a like, oh, this is starting to get popular in like the weekly shonen magazine. I have to start like forcing battles down people's throats. And then I don't know. At least from what I saw, people were like, okay, but when is Mash going to do funny thing again?
And I mean, that is the trajectory for so many shonen series that start off subversive. They got their own ideas. We're going to be different. We're going to be creative. We're going to do cool stuff. And then, they all just turn into Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Including Dragon Ball, which didn't start as Dragon Ball. That was a gag comic until it became the basis for all of what all of these other shows become.
Yeah. It's like I was having this discussion the other day with someone that like Dragon Ball fans nowadays are not the same people that were Dragon Ball fans at the beginning at all. Very different crowd.
Yeah. And it's especially weird in like the US and other places where we got Z first, and Z was so much bigger that a lot of those people don't even know that it was originally just like a gag manga. It's kind of like the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Like, what was originally a sequel has eclipsed the original so much that, you don't think about what it started at.
Yeah, I have to agree with Kestrel. Basically, everything that you said. It's like if you take away those things, what does it have? And then if we're gonna go into a prolonged state of no Mash doing funny things, like does the show have a chance at even being remotely interesting outside of maybe animating the magic effects and stuff like that? I will say before we move on that one of his, like, the small gags that I think made me laugh the most actually was just Mash telling the main bad guy, like, you're talking to a doll, right? as if he had it, like he did not know, and the bad guy was just like, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite parts, is that as the series gets continually more like edgy and serious, Mash will always be there to be like, you're being kind of cringe right now, bro.
He said that about the Magia Lupus. He's like, sounds like a show I come up with when I was 12.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah, it has moments.
Sure. Yep.
It's almost like he's part of the audience as well. Mash is like, all right, guys, can we like move on with this?
He is an audience.
My quads.
Yeah, he's a viewer stand-in in the better ways at this point, like poking fun at the show's conventions, which is always excellent. But yeah, if he's going to be absent for a while, I think that'll put a strain on even like passive watching capability.
Yeah,
but we'll see. All right. Let's see. It's 10 o'clock or so, but I think we can squeeze one more in there. I think we've actually covered all the shows that I'm watching, so it's really kind of up to you guys if you wanted to talk a little bit about like Oshi no Ko or Save That. I'm personally interested in how Brandon has Ranking of Kings high and Kestrel dropped it.
Yeah.
But I'll leave it up. I'll leave it up to you two, since I'm not going to really contribute to either of those conversations.
It's interesting because I do want to defend Ranking of Kings, but I also want to talk about the controversy with Oshi no Ko because I think that's an interesting topic as well. I will just say the one thing I will say about Ranking of Kings is that I think for like spin-off side material, it's doing everything it needs to, everything that it should be and can be. And I've actually been surprised how much it's added to the world building and the characters outside of the main story. I think especially about the parts with not Despa, but what is the brother's name in the mortal one?
The immortal one, Oken?
Yeah, Oken. I feel like the episodes focused on Oken and the king and Despa, like trying, like the whole backstory about Oken's downfall was like really well done, and like I think that's exactly like all I really needed out of side stories is to just like expand on these characters more and have us like uh just give us like a deeper part of the world building that was happening alongside or before the main story, just to like enrich it some more. And I've been enjoying that. And yeah, I have really no complaints otherwise because it still looks really good. Like lots of good fight choreography and animation, even though it's like you wouldn't expect high production values as much on like a little side project like this, but I think it looks just as good as the main story has. So I'm pleasantly satisfied with it. It still like pulls on me emotionally in ways that is satisfactory. So I've been having a good time.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just nothing but constant random side things from the story that we already saw. It's just hard to like get invested in and care about it all. I think if it had been mixed in or it was more focused, or there weren't some of the like real throwaway bits in there, then I could be like, yeah, okay. It doesn't need to be like top of the line, super important material all the time. But yeah, it was just I was finding it harder and harder to care each week.
Yeah, I feel like the vignette style is not for everyone, especially I mean when you're watching enough shows it falls lower on the priority list. I'm definitely like maybe 2 or 3 episodes behind on it right now just because I'm like I need to be caught up on Gundam for the podcast and I need to be caught up on this for the podcast.
Yeah, nothing of consequence is going to happen in the Ranking of Kings spinoff.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think we could table that if we want to end with some Oshi no Ko talk.
Sure.
I will say I think it's interesting that there was so much controversy around like the last arc with the dating show, and I understand that it's like a very sensitive topic because it was very much in line with like a real life thing that happened with the terrace house.
Yeah.
Person committing suicide, and I can understand why it's controversy in the regard that like some people think it's like disrespectful to like the family of who that happened to and whatnot. But I also think it, it's one of those things that has to be talked about. Otherwise, what's the point of making a show that is, digging into this industry that is so toxic in the first place, with whether it's idols or just like TV production or like um the internet's reaction to famous people and stuff. I feel like it's a really dark thing that needs to be highlighted. Otherwise, how do we cope with these things when they do happen? Like, it's not something you can really turn a blind eye to, and I think the anime did it in a really good way, and I don't see why people think it shouldn't have been done, I guess, but that might just be more of the Japanese audience being upset because it's so much closer to home. But I mean, they were the ones that kind of made it happen to have to be covered, so
yeah. I mean, I think so I haven't seen that much controversy about it. I saw that like Hanakimura's mother came out and was like not happy with them basically using her daughter's story. But I would say that if that audience at large is like having a problem with it, it's probably because they were being shown a mirror and they don't like how ugly they looked in it. Because that is exactly what that arc was calling out, where that kind of mob mentality, faceless internet army that would just jump on anyone for any slight slip up and destroy their life. So if this big property puts a big mirror in front of them and shows the world how hideous that is and how traumatic that is and how it can cost people their lives, then I'm not surprised that they would be like, all right, well, let's all gang up on it now because we can't have that as the message being shared. But no, it was a brilliant way of, like you said, we're going to talk about this industry. Let's just do a warts and all unflinching portrayal of just how deep and how much the despair can weigh on people. And using a real life example, it can be construed as insensitive when you're not like getting permission from the family or whatever. It can reopen scars that people don't want to think about, but like you said, it's incredibly important to talk about that. And it you can have your straw men and your exaggerations and your villains in a narrative that you're creating from scratch, but when you make that so based in reality and so based on these very real, very depressing events that actually went down, it carries so much more weight because people can't be like, well, that's not realistic, because no, that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what has happened. And we need to acknowledge that and put that out there in this platform that, you can kind of express it as objectively bad. When you're on one side of an internet argument, you don't necessarily have that perspective. But when you dial it back and look at it from the perspective of the characters going through it and everything that they have to deal with, then you really get to have that empathy and see that, the careless words that you can throw around here and there do have, the worst possible consequences for people. And that's so important to share in that kind of story and dissection of the entertainment industry. So I think it was brilliantly done.
Yeah, and it's not like it was a one for one too. It was, they were showing this thing that is real that happens to people that end up on TV shows that are normal people, like like budding actresses and stuff that get harassed, and they not only showed the real dark side of it, but they attempted to teach a kind of resolution, like, well, why don't we handle it this way, and maybe this kind of stuff won't happen again? Like, why don't we shed light onto who these people really are and show you that they are just as human as the people watching the TV, and that, like, you aren't just like hurling insults at like some untouchable celebrity. You are hurling insults at like a young girl that like doesn't really know who she is. And like, if we just level ourselves out a bit and not like create this parasocial distance of like, oh, they can handle it. They're on TV. They're just like stop like being who you are and like everything will be fine. I think they at least try to give some kind of resolution and show that like we can overcome these types of things. We just have to treat each other like human beings.
Right. Yeah, the great irony of it is that, this is all a result of, seeing these real people in real life as essentially, for all intents and purposes, fictional characters that can't be hurt by anything you say or do. And it's through this platform of creating actual fictional characters that it actually exposes it in a way that humanizes those people and creates that empathy and gives you that perspective of seeing them as real people. So it takes a fictional world with made up cartoon characters to make you see actual real life human beings as people, which is kind of darkly humorous in its own way.
Yeah.
But
I think it's also important that they highlight what goes into creating television like that, because we all have our own stigmatisms on like what reality TV is,
right,
and like how people perceive it, and like most people are like, oh, it's just like garbage, it's just like over dramatized, they cut things up to like show people in the worst light. And I think it was important that the show was able to highlight on set like how different it actually is in creating those shows, and how like there's not really a script, but there's also like direction in how the show is shot and purpose in how the scenes are created to make these reality shows most enticing for audiences to watch. And I think showing it on the ground level was like important in humanizing what goes behind this quote unquote trash TV that so many people eat up.
Yeah, I think the whole series has done a really great job at peeking behind the curtain of various aspects of the entertainment industry, especially in Japan, but a lot of it is universal. And yeah, I think both showing the onset paradigm of creating reality TV and also just the resolution that they came up with really illustrates how the same real life unscripted material can be portrayed in completely different lights depending on the editing and everything. So yeah, I think that not only does it serve as a way to solve the unsolvable problem of humanity being garbage and the internet enabling humanity to be a horrible faceless mob with no repercussions, that can bring down millions of people onto one innocent person for saying the wrong thing or whatever. But yeah, it also showed that these things are entirely the product of their delivery, and if you took the cut that the actual cast would make, you would see them all in a very different light and see that they are real humans and they have real relationships that are maybe not as scandalous and Jerry Springerable, but they're much more real and empathetic.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that, like, I know a lot of people when the show first started was like, "Oh, how do you follow up this prologue episode, and like how can it still be just as like uh entertaining, and like how can I still be as hooked?" And I feel like the show's done more than enough to keep being interesting and keep like showing new dynamics of what they're trying to explore in the criticizing the entertainment industry. And yeah, I've been loving every episode of it.
Yeah, like it's an entirely different show now. I mean, it carries the same theme because we're already kind of exploring the entertainment industry and the dark side of both its production and its fandom in the first episode movie. But beyond that, like it's pretty much an entirely different series now. But yeah, it's great. It's really good at what it does. Akasaka is a really good writer. And I like Kana is probably still my favorite character. And she had a really great arc when she was the focus of it. But I also appreciate that in the subsequent arc where she was no longer the focus, that Akasaka kind of used her as his mouthpiece. And it fit her character, and it continued to make her character even better because she got to have this relevance and these really great things to say. But it makes sense for her as the actress since early childhood to have these kind of perspectives on the entertainment industry, that she's kind of the old veteran even though she's 16 or 17 or whatever. Yeah. Because she's been in it her whole life, and that allows Akasaka to kind of have her give a soliloquy about his philosophy on the situation. He gets to do the show don't tell in the whole episode where it's kind of illustrating Akane's downfall, but then in the next episode he's kind of like, well, if that wasn't transparent enough for you, here's my exact feelings on the subject put through Anna's mouth. And so she gets to do that as a way of showing us what she's been through and experienced and learned in her many years in this industry, as well as explaining it to people who are new to the industry and naive and don't necessarily know what they're getting themselves into by putting themselves in the public spotlight, which is what Ruby's role is. And also depicting to the audience how he really feels about it. So
yeah. And man, when Akane had her glow up and she did the eyes, I was like, oh yeah, we called this out. The real eyes, and Akane realized eyes.
Oh my god.
Can we work that into a title somehow? I'm not sure.
We tried last week.
I thought we did.
Did we?
No, we didn't end up naming it after that, I don't think. But that was my vote anyway. Yeah, that was definitely a great way to end that episode. And especially since we had a 2-week break for that, that was a great cliffhanger to leave off on. Yeah. And the way that the show also blends in the ending theme at the end of every episode, it's always like really good, really well-directed cliffhangers that start to blend into the ending in a really natural way.
Yeah.
Say, is that everything? You guys good? Got it out of your system?
For now.
I think so.
For now.
Did you? I guess I should ask. You've watched Terrace House, right?
Yeah, DJ and I used to be obsessed about it before all this shit went down.
Right. Okay. So you're familiar with all that. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
You probably don't remember, but back in the day, it'd be hard not to talk about it in an episode where we would go off on tangents for 5 or 10 minutes talking about Terrace House.
Well, I know you guys talked about Terrace House, but about the whole controversy and
and
her suicide and everything.
Yeah, no, I remember when that happened and everything, and they stopped the show, and all that stuff happened, and of course it never came back, nor necessarily should it. So
right. Yeah. Well,
so people will still have their Love Islands and whatnot to fill that void. So,
sort of, kind of.
As you probably gathered from our discussion, yeah, Oshinoko basically portrays that scenario almost one for one.
Yeah, that's a weird thing to do.
It's done really well.
I meant in the context of if they didn't ask the family or anything if it was okay that they just blatantly copied off of how someone died, then yeah, I could see that would be a little bit of an issue.
I mean, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but it doesn't end like that in Oshinoko.
Yeah,
it doesn't have the actual tragic ending. So they might have skirted that really uncomfortable position a little bit. But basically everything after that.
So they pulled a Law and Order SVU with it, where they copied everything but the final result, and then just sort of changed some of the names in the place and the show.
Yeah, I mean,
they give it a more uplifting message.
You're right.
This is how we avoid this shit from happening.
Yeah, I think it's like it was important to portray it in such a similar chain of events to kind of remind people like this is how these things happen, and seeing it from the very sympathetic perspective of the victim in the situation, and really digging into that. But then, not giving it its ultimate tragic ending, and instead, yeah, like Fran said, exploring how you could kind of mitigate that situation and come to a relatively peaceful resolution. So, yeah.
I wonder what the timeline is for like when the Terrace House thing happened and when the manga was being written. If that lines up.
I feel like that should have been really close, actually, because we're very early in the series right now, and the series started in 2020, which I think is when that all went down.
Yeah, and not to say that it was or wasn't inspired by it, but like, it's not an uncommon enough like theme to cover that it could have very well just naturally been written because it's something that has transpired, but like not to that, high of a level until the Terrace House thing happened.
Right.
Like, it's not like it was a new phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah, the manga started like a month before she died, so it couldn't have been too long after that arc happened in the manga.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, I agree. Like the point is kind of that these things continue to happen. This particular scenario bears the most resemblance to, this other Japanese reality show that resulted in this cyberbullying and eventual suicide. So it's very easy to draw that comparison. But yeah, so many individual pieces of that have happened so many times over in so many different ways that that's the important story they're telling, is that this is not an isolated incident. This is something that continues to happen and will continue to happen, and that's a problem that we need to address.
Yep.
Very interesting. All right, well, I think it's about time we wrap things up, get to the recommendations and stuff if anybody has any.
Oh man, I've been waiting all episode for recommendations. This is this is my meat of the episode. So much good stuff. Sorry, what?
The meat and potatoes.
Yeah, so much good stuff to recommend. Oh my god. So we, like I said, we haven't done an episode where we did like news and recommendations in a while. So actually, the day that we recorded our last episode, that studio ranking episode, was the release date of The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, which I'm sure everyone who is ever going to play is already playing. And I've just been seeing nothing but Tears of the Kingdom shitposts across all of social media and the internet, which is fantastic. And yeah, it's impossible expectations to meet, right? Because Breath of the Wild was so acclaimed and so influential and revolutionary for 6 years, and now we're finally getting its follow-up, and it is surprising how much it's the same game. So you definitely don't get that sort of like, completely revolutionary sensation anymore, but it's also impressive in how they've managed to add such like seemingly minor additions and new features and powers that just create this entire new world of creativity. So yeah, it's still pretty incredible. If you wanted more Breath of the Wild, then it's definitely a must play. And if you expected to be completely taken away by a new experience, then maybe it's not that. But the new tools that it does give you are enough that, given the right mindset, you could have endless creativity, like to Minecraft kind of degrees, I suppose. So yeah, that speaking of, revolutionary masterpieces that transformed their industries and had half a decade or more of build-up for their continuation that seemed impossible to meet. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse just came out last week, and it seemed impossible to meet those expectations. Again, Into the Spider-Verse has been so influential in the animation industry, especially in the US, but really worldwide since it came out. Like, pretty much every major studio that was married to the Pixar aesthetic for decades has, except for Pixar themselves, have started doing more like 2D on 3D, and almost every single one of them have like directly acknowledged Spider-Verse as an influence in that aesthetic shift. So, again, you can't really have that sort of impact again with the follow-up, but goddamn, that movie, like, almost definitely the best film of the 2020s so far, maybe the top 10 films of all time for me. Yeah, it's incredible. I want to be watching it every day of my life until Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out.
Only a year away.
Yeah, less than a year this time. Not 5 years. It's just March. Yeah, so absolutely don't wait. Watch that in theaters. Get it on 4K Blu-ray too. It's already up on Best Buy with its steelbook and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, but definitely watch that in theaters. And if you can get it in like IMAX or Dolby Cinema or something, go for that, because we got a lot of blockbusters coming out right after it that are going to take away all those premium format screens. So yeah, get that in the best format you can while you can.
Yeah, I gotta watch that this weekend. I just rewatched Into the Spider-Verse last weekend and getting myself hyped up, trying to avoid anything, but the internet will not stop.
Yeah, no, you gotta watch that on opening night, man. That's crazy.
I know. It's okay. The internet's busy arguing about Gwen, so well, luckily it hasn't been a lot of like actual spoilers, just like gender identity arguments on the internet as it does.
Of course. Another film that came out that same weekend that is on paper completely irrelevant to our podcast and anything we would talk about is Past Lives, but that is also not only one of the best films of this young decade. We're a few years in, 3.5 years in, but I also think that it has a lot in common with 5 centimeters per second. And I think that, if you approach that in a way that works for live action, combined with kind of, more focus on the adult side of it and what might progress in that storyline afterwards if things had gone slightly differently, it's a really fascinating exploration of love and what different kinds of love can mean and how they can conflict and exist in tandem with each other. So yeah, I highly recommend anyone check that film out as well, especially if you like Inkai longing. Is a favorite trope. Another one of my favorite films from this decade, from back in 2020, is finally out on Blu-ray in the US, and that is actually relevant to us because it is Violet Evergarden, the movie. Yeah, so you can get that on 4K Blu-ray. It's got, I think there's still some copies of the limited edition floating around. So definitely get that. Obviously, it looks gorgeous, especially on 4K. It's got Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, if you've got a sound setup that supports that. So yeah, that's a very high recommendation for anime releases from the past month or so. And then for manga, Denpa finally released the March Comes In Like a Lion, the first volume of that manga. So yeah, I got my copy of that, read through that. great series. Everyone should everyone should watch the anime for sure. It's out on Crunchyroll. But now the manga is out as well, so you can check that out. And I look forward to following that in that format as well. I think
mine up somewhere.
I think those are all of my recommendations, but those are all like 5 absolute top tier recommendations.
Your letterbox is gonna be popping off. All these movies. I've got one manga recommendation. I don't know if it was brought up I don't know if it was announced since the last recommendations we had, but it's not out yet, but I think there are pre-orders up for the Dark Horse is putting out the Trigun Omnibus. So you're going to finally be able to read Trigun in big, giant book form, similar to their Hellsing and Berserk releases. So I feel like that'll be a good second coming for that series to have, like, hopefully fully published big, pretty volumes in the US. And shouts out Bigalus Dickalus Wolfwood for somehow memeing his way into getting that to be talked about. Oh yeah. That's my one rec.
Kate, anything from your end?
One of my favorite video game podcasts and websites was shut down last week, Waypoint. And they were owned by Vice, and Vice obviously was filing for bankruptcy. So the folks over there decided to go independent, and they have started Remap Radio. So you can search Remap radio.com, I think is their email. I don't know, is their website, which is very bare bones, but they're up on, like, the podcast feeds and stuff like that. So they're basically beginning all over again. I don't know if they're going to keep their sign off of "fuck capitalism, go home," but they're good people and they do good work, and I'm happy that they are continuing on, at least for the summer. But I think people have thrown enough money at them that I think they'll be okay for a while. So, but go check them out. Clean start.
Are they mainly like video game news, or do they like talk about the break down games themselves, or what's
they break down games, but they also have a very when they were doing work at Waypoint, they had a very social, political angle where they would look at things from a very different perspective. But like every other personality driven thing in the world, half the time it's tune in to hear them talking about games that you might be interested in or might be under your radar. Stick around to hear Rob talk about how he's buying boutique handcrafted kitchen appliances, so that inevitably cost way too much money and break on him. So it's the usual nonsense. Or Patrick putting a 12-foot skeleton in his front yard and all the neighbors taking pictures of it, and
those things
in
are
his
amazing.
front yard. Or juggling being a dad and doing doing video games for a career. They're good people. They do good work. They're way too intelligent. They're you want to hear intelligent people on a podcast? Go listen to those people, because
not many of those.
No.
What about you, Kane? Anything?
Street Fighter 6.
True.
There you go.
True, that's a good rec.
Video games.
That's all I got.
I need to see more terrifying abomination player created characters.
Oh,
I made the Tasmanian Devil.
Nice. You'll have to put a screenshot of that in our thing so we can see.
Please. Maybe I'll put it in the thumbnail.
I made Tasmanian Devil, and then I made another character that I inadvertently just made every rhythm guitarist from a 70s prog rock band.
Nice.
But he has a green laser eye, so he's cool.
I need screenshots of these people.
Yeah, the game's really great. I was able to get my 11-year-old fight stick to work on my PC. So,
nice.
Sick.
So I'm back in business. haven't played a Street Fighter since 4, I think, because I skipped out on 5. But
5 was bad, so that's okay.
Yeah, it's great. It looks great. It feels great. It's surprisingly polished for being just released. Like I'm so used to games releasing broken.
Yeah, and a game that like releases with a lot of fucking content too.
Yeah, because for the first time they have like a whole separate single player story mode that isn't just, an arcade style climb the ladder and then they have that too, like an arcade climb the ladder story mode, but then there's also a world tour mode where it's like a pseudo open world with your created character and you get a dumbed down version of the fighting game portions. That can help teach
you and Chun-Li.
Yeah, you can learn like the basics of not only how the game works, but how fighting games work in general through the World Tour mode, which is kind of nice. It's like a really prolonged tutorial, just doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, that's nice. I feel like lots of fighting games nowadays don't have good entry points like that.
Right. Yeah, a lot of them are made with people like the demographic of, well, people in the fighting game community are going to buy this. So if we're going to put in a tutorial, it can just be bare bones or cover whatever our game specific mechanics and systems are. But yeah, it's really very good. Very friendly to beginners. So a lot of people, this is their first Street Fighter, and it works because there's like a separate modern control set, which takes away a lot of the need to be as precise in your button inputs to get, your Dragon Punches and your Tatsumakis and all that, all your moves. So yeah, would recommend. But all right, I think with all these top tier recommendations in the books, I think we can sign out for the night. So Kestrel, as usual, why don't you tell everyone where you can find us and tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find us wherever you find podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Alexa, whatever. Fanpost.com. Check out our episode from last time. We did a ranking of our top anime studios. That's always a good perennial one you can listen to regardless of what time it is. Yeah, you can find us on social media if you want to get in contact with us or whatever. We're on Twitter and Facebook at Fandom Post Radio. You can also get in contact with us via email, fandompostradio@gmail.com. And I'm on Twitter at FullMetalKyoma. I don't post anything. You can find me on fandompost.com. I'm reviewing Oshinoko this season.
You can find me at Hellshake Brando on most socials. Over on the Fandom Post, I have been reviewing Mashl's manga weekly for 2 years now-ish. And if you enjoy the anime and want to catch up on the manga, I recommend doing it right away because the manga might be ending in very soon. So if you want to catch my reviews at the finale of it all, catch me there. Yeah.
I am on the internet at Sonic Bug. You can find me all over the internet at Sonic Bug. I haven't been posting on the socials much at all this year, but you can track me down on the forums I post on, which I will not name on here. And you can track me down on our website, which I will name on here, fandompost.com. I am trying to desperately catch up on all of the backlog of my review material that I've been hoarding, and I've been cranking out a bunch of book reviews mostly. So you can, go find my stuff on our website. And that's about it.
Alrighty, and as usual, you can find me right here. Not much going on with social media, which also very much helps not getting spoiled for Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
So
also helps not getting cyberbullied into suicide.
That's also very true.
Yeah.
Just don't use it.
Fair.
Be cool. Don't do social media.
Don't do social media. Do go to fandompost.com and become a Patreon member or donate to the Clean Out Chris's Basement Fund.
This is approved.
This is approved. He can donate some money, and he usually has a spreadsheet of a bunch of stuff that he has reviewed that he's getting rid of, which you can get for way cheaper than market value.
Yeah, to get you some anime and help us keep making all this lovely content.
Indeed. All right. Well, as always, thank you everyone for listening. Have a good rest of your week and enjoy what your anime season has to offer. And maybe go out and watch some good movies like Spider-Man or play some good games like Zelda or Street Fighter.
Peace out.
Bye bye.